If we look at our braking and slowing down process as a whole, we can break that into 3 segments: initial braking, maximum braking, and then into trail braking. For this course, we're talking about our straight line braking, so that means initial and maximum. And for this lesson, we're going to start to talk about our initial braking and how important that is to getting our bike slowed down as efficiently as possible. Initial braking is so important because it sets the tone for the entire braking action that we go through. It determines how our bike begins to move, how it begins to transfer weight, and how it starts to do all the things we talked about in the previous lesson about what happens when we use our brakes. Now, when we think about initial braking, the first thing we have to remember is being smooth. We know from our previous lesson, we're transferring a lot of energy and a lot of weight into the front of our motorcycles. And it's important to give all the components involved enough time to be ready to handle the maximum braking phase of our stopping. So, when we go to the brakes, we don't want to stab or grab. We want to squeeze. We want to squeeze and cradle that energy into the front tire, creating that contact patch, growing that contact patch, and also transferring the weight through our fork springs. It's really important not to use up too much of our fork travel, and we can control that through smooth initial braking. Now we're going to demonstrate smooth initial braking using this bottle of water. Now, if we think of this bottle of water as the weight that we're going to transfer through the front of our motorcycles when we go to the brakes, we can think of a stab or a grab on the front brakes being something that looks like this. Now that transferred a certain amount of weight, a certain distance, into our fork springs, or in this case the floor, based on how we dropped it, how we got it there. Now, let's look at another way that we can transfer this weight the same distance in a slightly different way and get maybe a little bit different result. So, we've got our weight, we're going to transfer that weight again, and that time we did it in a much more controlled manner and transferred a lot less energy into the floor. Now, what this allows us to do is to really work, to really dig and drive that weight, and put a lot more energy into our front tire, into our fork springs, into the whole system that creates the front of our motorcycles that we're relying on to put weight and energy to create traction for us during maximum braking. In that demonstration, it's so easy to see how important it is to be so smooth with those front brakes and to mitigate the initial energy that goes into those front forks. That's going to make big gains for us down the road as we move into maximum braking. It's going to allow us to brake harder ultimately, and ultimately stop our motorcycles more quickly than we would be able to otherwise. So it's also easy to see how quickly we can still grab that front brake lever. In that second demonstration, that weight transferred the same distance in almost the same speed. So just because we're being smooth doesn't mean we need to take 2 or 3 seconds to pull those brakes all the way in. We can still be pretty fast with our brake levers. So this is initial braking. It's going to take some practice. Get out on the racetrack, try it out for yourselves, work and see how much more maximum braking you'll be able to apply. And we'll cover that next. We're going to talk about maximum braking right here in our next lesson.